Neither do I. Do you know Tariq's coming? Just start.
Uh, um,
All right, hold on.
I texted him, sir, but I'm waiting on his response.
All right, cool.
Oh, he says he's going to be a little late, like 15 minutes or so.
All right. Let's begin. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Mhm. All right, cool. So we're going to start off with a new unit under, or a new topic under a new unit today. We'd have finished unit 3 on Tuesday. So with unit 3 out of the way, you should be familiar with the 6 challenges that can derail a project or derail the integration of a project. And in addition to knowing the challenges that can derail a project, we also know the 9 best practices that can prevent those challenges. Tonight, what we're going to be looking at in Unit 4 is similar to systems integration, but a little bit more specific. We're going to be looking at business process integration, or BPI for short. Hit this. Yeah. Right. So we're going to be looking at business process integration, which I said is a subset or a much smaller, more honed in precise topic than the general systems integration. And this is going to come as a shift because in units 1 through to 3, we're focusing mostly on strategy, strategies on how you can connect systems. Also things like what can go wrong in a system, and if something go wrong, what you're supposed to do about it. But unit 4, that's going to be different, where what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the different tools and approaches that people actually use to connect business processes. So this unit is going to be a bit more hands-on. It's going to be a bit more practical, a little bit more technical. It's still theory, but it's going to be talking about technicalities of that theory. Good? So what we're going to be looking at tonight is 3 things. We're going to be looking at what BPI, or business process integration, actually is. We're going to be looking at how it's different from just general systems integration. That's the first thing. Second thing is we're going to be looking at 6 BPI tools, or business process integration tools, and the features that you need to know. And then the third thing is the 2 main BPI approaches, 2 main approaches to BPI. And those 2 approaches that we're going to be looking at are very similar to what we've looked at before, in that the 2 processes or approaches that we're going to be looking at are top down and bottom up. Yeah. All right. So let me see. Also, as a way to help make the concepts and definitions concrete, I'll continue with my examples. I'm going to use a hospital example throughout the session, so that we can understand the definitions and the concepts and relate them to a real world scenario. So for my real world scenario, I'm going to have you consider a hospital that has 3 systems: an electronic health record system. Do I have it on my slides? No, what did the problem come up? Let me type it up. One sec. Just so that we have something to remember and look at each point. So we have the electronic health record system. And we also have, let me see what's it. One sec. We have the electronic health record system. The next one is the billing and insurance claim system. Billing and insurance claims system. Oh, this one is EHR. Just in case you hear me say EHR. So billing and insurance claims system, and then we're also going to have the pharmacy management system. This is see. Pharmacy. And I'm going to be explaining the significance of each one. Pharmacy management system. Oh no, this one's PMS. System. Okay, so these are the three systems that we need to remember for our hospital. And at the moment, they are separate. Them being separate, right now, the way that they work or the way how the staff uses them is a nurse, for example, will manually transfer patient data between all three systems. This manual process, it's slow, it's prone to errors, and most of all, it's expensive. All we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at how we can use BPI to fix that. Good? Oh, I should put this on the side. Put this over here. Okay. That good? We okay so far?
Yes, sir.
All right. So first thing, what is BPI or business process integration? The definition I'm going to give you is going to sound very familiar, but I'll help to clarify it in a second. So BPI is the process of connecting business applications to improve workflow. It also ensures data consistency, and it also helps to streamline operations across an enterprise. So like I said, that may sound a lot like systems integration in general. So I'll explain what the difference is. Systems integration specifically, let me not even say specifically because it's general, is a broad concept. We use it to connect systems for any reason. So that deals specifically with the connection between systems. BPI, on the other hand, is specifically about business processes or how the flow, how work will flow throughout an organization, right? Consider it this way. System integration says that you have these three systems and they need to talk to each other. That's all system integration care about. That they have three systems and each other need to talk. Or BPI, on the other hand, for example, if a doctor writes a prescription, what's supposed to happen after they write a prescription? Them writing a prescription is supposed to automatically trigger three particular things. It's supposed to trigger the pharmacy to prepare the medication. It's also supposed to have the billing system generate a charge. And then it's supposed to have the patient's health record system update. So it's about the processes, not just the connection. We don't just want to have the connection laid out. We want to know specifically the rules that determine what's supposed to happen and when. So we'll have triggers, we'll have events, and we want to know what these triggers lead to. When an event occurs, what's supposed to happen? All right. Where was I? Pharmacy, blah, blah, blah. Not just connection, right? So BPI, it sits at the intersection of business and technology. So it's kind of like the in-between of the technical side and the business side. It's not just an IT project. It also requires understanding of the actual business workflows. You'd have to, a person that is put in charge of doing these BPI integrations or the business process integration would have to know the answer to questions like, what does a nurse do first? And when the nurse performs her action, what is that supposed to trigger? What is the next step? And also, they do also need to know the answer to the question, where do errors occur? So being able to answer questions like this would allow somebody to perform the business process integration. You wouldn't be able to automate these processes or these tasks if you don't understand the business or if you don't understand the process. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Um, all right. So here's what I want you to do. Take a second and I want you to give me in your own words the difference between system integration and BPI, business process integration. If you need a minute, you can take a minute, but just think about the difference between the two based on how I've explained it. I hope you're muted because you're thinking about it. Remember, we don't have to fall back on.
Uh, sir, um, so would um, so
Tell me
BPI
if
would
you
be
need
like,
more assistance, huh?
uh, I think I understand it as it being like a more detailed, in-depth look at the processes of
Say again?
how it'll be a more in the detail look at the processes of how like a specific business does certain processes.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks more in depth on those processes to know what to do instead of just making connections.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I think you seem to have an understanding. So the main difference is for systems integration, all systems integration in general cares about is that there are some systems that are currently not connected, so they're not communicating between each other. The process is manual, or maybe not a process, but maybe some particular process may be manual, and you'd be able to automate it if these three systems were connected in some way. The systems integration only cares that the systems are not connected, we need to connect them. BPI now, or business process integration, after the systems have been connected, we need to know how they're supposed to behave once they're connected. So, because them just being connected alone isn't enough. They need to have some logic that is performed in between them to say, when some action takes place in system A, what is that supposed to trigger in system B or system C? Or if it is even supposed to trigger anything at all. If it's supposed to trigger something, what is it supposed to trigger? Right? So that's why I said that it's important for an integrator to understand the actual business logic before they can actually perform these integrations. Because if they don't know anything about the company, if they don't know what's supposed to happen in the company that's supposed to actually provide value, you can't perform a BPI or a business process integration. You could perform a systems integration because just making it so that you have one API connected to, or rather one client connected to another API, just generically. That's fine. You can do that in systems integration. But a person who's performing BPI or business process integration, that person would need to know, in addition to those two systems being connected, how is the data supposed to flow between them? Is the data supposed to flow between them? And if it is, when is it supposed to flow? What's supposed to happen before data can move from one system to another? Right? So that's the main difference. Tell me if that's clear.
A little bit.
A little bit. All right. Let's see if we can run through a little bit more to see if we can solidify the concept in your head. All right. So we're going to be looking at a few of the tools that we can use to implement BPI. Let me see. So the first four tools that we're going to be looking at, I'm not so sure about the five and six, but the first four, they kind of address maybe not the same thing, kind of the same thing, but they're like one is like a spectrum where one end is technical and the other end is non-technical. So number one would be the most technical. And when I say technical, I mean like code related. And then number four would be the least technical. That would just be pictures on a screen that you just drag and drop. Number five and number six, we'll see what those mean when we get to them. But yeah, we're going to be taking a look at the different tools that we can use. And when I say these tools, BPI tools, we can think of them as platforms or, like I said, tools that we can use to actually implement the business logic or to have the system do what it's supposed to. It's supposed to let the system know how the data is supposed to flow, right? And we have six tools that we're going to be looking at. So like I said, starting on the extreme end of the spectrum, we're going to be looking at the SDK or the software development kit. Am I on the right slide? Oh, okay. The software development kit. All right. So the software development kit is a collection of pre-built tools or libraries and even code samples that developers, programmers can use to build integration solutions. Think of this like a toolbox or a kit that you'd get, maybe like a Lego kit or something, right? You have something that you need to construct. And instead of building everything from scratch, instead of building the building blocks from scratch, instead of the building tools from scratch, you're given a kit with some tools and you likely get some instructions as well. So that you just follow the instructions and use the provided material to build whatever it is you're trying to build. So with the SDK, when you're writing your code, you're not starting from zero. You're not doing the basic arithmetic or the printing to screen all from your head from scratch. You start with some libraries or some code packages that you can use to actually get some of the work done for you. Get that done out of the way so that you can think about just the logic, the way the data flows. Have you ever used any SDKs or coding libraries or packages? Don't know.
Probably. I think so, sir.
Yeah, I would think you have. Let me see. What kind of packages would I imagine you would have used? You say you're not doing any programming courses this year, are you?
Uh, Not learning ones, just applying what we learned.
Oh, okay. What's the name of the course that you're applying that stuff in?
Uh, the capstone
Oh, okay.
capstone project.
Okay, so what's your project?
Uh,
Why you
we
laugh?
don't find because we don't finalize it.
You
But
don't
the one
finalize
that
it?
we're going with is some type of a type of system that is applicable in hospitals or clinics or so on
Mm-hmm.
that lets the doctor or the nurses be able to see who is available, and then it has another section to it where the patient will be able to log their information. So like the doctor would their doctor that the nurse set for them or
Mm-hmm.
something like that will have some knowledge pre before they go into their appointment,
Okay.
instead of having like the papers. So
Mm-hmm.
that would digitalize
Mm-hmm.
that sector. And
Mm-hmm.
so it also makes us know like which doctors are available and
Mm-hmm.
which one they can set for certain things. But
Okay.
we have more processes thinking about, but we're not finished with it. But that's part of what we have so far. We
Okay.
thought of so far.
Got it. Um, how long is the capstone? Is it one semester or is it two semesters?
2 semesters, sir. We're just
Oh,
doing the planning section to it before we start next next semester we'll start actually building the system.
next semester. Wait. So it's not this semester I do?
No,
Oh.
just the some documentations I
Oh.
think due this semester.
Okay. All right. Sounds interesting. Maybe when it is supposed to be due? The end of next semester?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'll come back to you and find out how it went then, so you can demo it to me. You're supposed to have a demo, don't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I need a demo
Hmm.
before we actually build it, but
No, man.
not.
I imagine you're supposed to have like a formal demo where whoever you're, like maybe the lecturer for the class or whoever's in charge of capstone supposed to see the final product, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That is not until next
Mm-hmm. All right.
semester.
Maybe I'll see if I can be there on demo day to see how it goes. But all right, sounds good. I almost forgot the reason why I asked. Yes, so when you're writing your code to be able to make all these fancy features and such, actually, let me ask, is this a type of application that's supposed to, for example, work over the internet?
Well, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also thinking probably it might have some offline applications since like
Okay.
the clients will still like need to like sign up or something,
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but
so
it
you
still
said
needs
sign up.
some connections to the internet.
Right. So that means somebody should be able to pull up them phone, pull up a website or an app, and they should be able to register for your system, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So with that, you're almost definitely going to find that when you're writing out the code that's supposed to allow a user to uh, register for your system, you're going to have to be calling on some libraries. Those libraries that you're going to be calling on will help you to make requests that are sent from the client or from the phone to the server that was going to be handling or managing those requests, right? So when you ask the user to enter them email, them first name, last name, them date of birth, and so on, all that information needs to be wrapped up and transmitted over the internet or over the network. And when it gets to the server is supposed to be able to interpret that information and do something with that information. The process that you're going to need to implement to get that done is almost definitely going to require the use of an SDK or some coding library or package, right? If you don't use a coding library or package, you're going to have to do a lot of manual from scratch coding to the point where it may not even make sense that you do it that way at all. Yeah, because the amount of work, the amount of lines of code, and the amount of complexity that you're going to find in trying to implement that from scratch, that would be a whole project by itself. So you're going to have to call on some pre-made code blocks of code that you can use. All you need to do is just plug in your values, and then the pre-written code will handle the heavy lifting for you. So does that mean when I say SDK, right? You're not doing it from scratch. You're given the tools, you're given like a list of tools, and you pick and choose which one out of the tools that you need to use to get your project done, and you implement it to your project, right? Okay, let me relate this to the example I was going with. Coincidentally, I'm using hospital stuff when you're using hospital stuff. So in the hospital example, the EHR or the electronic health record vendor, they might provide an SDK that includes code libraries for pulling patient data, sending prescription orders, and even querying billing records. These libraries, they're going to be used by the developer, and they're going to be using these SDKs or these pre-built components to build the integration between the three systems instead of as opposed to building the connections or the data flows manually. So like I said, SDKs, they're for developer use, they're for programmers. And the use of the SDK, they require programming skills. So the person using the SDK, they're going to be writing code. And I would consider this to be the most flexible technical tool, or this is the most flexible, but it's also the most technical tool out of the six tools that we're going to be looking at. So, like I said, that's the extreme end of the technical spectrum. Questions on SDK? Are we good with that? Move on to the second tool. So
Yes,
the
sir. Good,
second
sir.
tool, all right, good. The second tool that we're going to be looking at is business rules. That would come next in the spectrum of technicality. It's not necessarily code. It's going to come more in the form of configuration. So business rules. These are configurable logic statements that govern how the data flows between systems. They're going to define when this event occurs, do this with this piece of data, or do that with that piece of data. Give an example. When a prescription is entered into the electronic health record system, it's supposed to automatically send this to the pharmacy system and also generate an insurance claim in the billing system. That's the business rule. So that is what is supposed to happen. The rules define the trigger. It also defines the condition and then the action, right? So the trigger would be the event that this process is listening for. And when that event is fired, the condition is, what needs to be compared to what in order to say where this data is supposed to go. And then the action is what is supposed to happen. Right? So what makes business rules powerful is that they can often be configured without any deep programming understanding. It's still technical, but it's something that is one notch above. Let me not say one notch above. It's one notch away from SDKs, basically. So it's something that still requires technical know-how, but it's not meant to be done during the development stage. It's something that's supposed to act as a configuration that determines how the programming works. So for example, an IT administrator or even a trained business analyst should be able to um, set up these configurations through an interface, as long as an interface is provided by the application. And you'd consider that the bridge between, was it the bridge? It's one of the bridges between the technical SDK and the non-technical side of the business application. I wouldn't consider it the one bridge. It's one of the bridges. Yeah. Business rules though, they can get complex. You might, for example, have a rule that says if a prescription is for a controlled substance, I mean, are all prescriptions for controlled substance? Well, we mean like, the hard substances. Um, then that would maybe require the pharmacist to approve the dispensing of this substance before it's actually dispensed. Another complex rule would be like if the patient insurance is expired, then you, for example, need to flag the billing record for a manual review, right? So the logic, they can have conditions, they can have exceptions, and they can have branching paths. And I'm almost absolutely certain that you guys are supposed to have a good understanding of these types of concepts because these are the stuff that you do in programming all the time, right? Tell me yes. Yes? I don't want
Repeat,
to
sir.
hear, I think so. I was saying, relating to business rules, I was saying that the business rules, they can have a certain level of complexity. Complexity can come in the form of a branching path or a condition where, like you said, for example, a patient's insurance could have been expired. Like when they swipe them health card, if the health card is expired, then maybe that's supposed to cause a red flag in the billing record system that prompts a user to do a manual review of the transaction, right? So that would be considered, it would be related to like a if statement basically. And I'm sure that you guys are already familiar with if statements, right?
Yes, sir.
Mhm. Um, or it would be a case where you have, where is it? If a prescription that's written, that's sent over to the pharmacy management system, if you find that on the prescription there is a controlled substance, then instead of the pharmacy system just getting it and just dispensing the drugs, you'd have to have a pharmacist approve the prescription before it is dispensed. So that's another um, event and action that needs to have happen, or like an event and action that requires or that considers some condition before the action actually takes place. Yeah. So that's an example of the kind of complexity that would come um, when we're looking at business rules.
So is
Mhm.
like is like specific things based off what the business wants, or is
Right,
it like
exactly. What was the next thing you were going to say?
Kind of lose it.
Hmm? No,
Johnny. I
no
kind of lost
problem.
what I was going to say. But it's all
Oh,
right, sir. I
yeah.
think
But like you
I
said,
think
it
I
is the
basically
specific.
get it.
So it's the specific things that the business wants. Right.
So, sir, oh
Okay.
yeah. So it was like there's like some systems integrators would like have like uh would have like yeah, let me have to stop saying that. So the system integrator would have like pre-built like they already think like how like the business would run with certain things. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
like put in like the basic plan, and then then the business tell them specific information or something. Or
Right.
would it be that it already, since they would talk to the business or
Mm-hmm.
the owners also, they
Mm-hmm.
would know like what the owners want from the system and everything, but they'd still have like the base system, and then they configure it around what the business wants, or well, its rules, or its, there's a word I'm looking for, or its specifics or something that the
I think I
business
get what you're saying.
business want. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
So,
I think your understanding is on the right path. System integrator will just lay the groundwork, and then after the system integration is completed, then, or maybe not after, at some point
and
during the integration, somebody else would come in that knows the rules of the business, that would go in and say, that make the system integration specific to this business. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So that's tool number two. Tariq, I don't know if you're totally lost at this point, if you need to go back through the recording and get caught up. But um, do you have any questions or want to express any understanding that you have currently, or want me to go over back anything before I continue? Tariq? No? All right. Okay, so I'll move on to the third tool. The third tool, oh, wait, move slides. One sec. So the third tool that we're going to be looking at is the natural language syntax. And again, going back to our spectrum of technicality, that is going to be a notch past business logic. So natural language syntax. This one is going to allow users to define integration rules using plain language, spoken language, instead of code or instead of configuration. So instead of writing some programming statement like if prescription type equals controlled, then require approval, instead of having something like that in a coding language, you'd write something closer to spoken language that's something like when a controlled substance is prescribed, require pharmacist approval. And then your system would actually be able to understand that written language or that spoken language and interpret it as a business rule. So it's designed to read like spoken language or English. I don't like saying English because what if the system is in Spanish? But it's supposed to read like spoken language, or at least closer to spoken language than traditional code. And the reason for this is to make the integration configuration accessible to people who aren't programmers. We want to make it so that people who are not technical can also the design or determine what the business logic is or the business rules are. So that would be like people like your clinical staff, operations manager, your business analysts, or people who are people who understand the business process, but they don't write code. So the natural language syntax would let them participate in defining how integrations work. Um, and this one is closely related to business rules, the previous tool, but the main difference being the interface. The business rules, they define logic, and the natural language syntax is just another way of expressing that logic in a human readable format. Yeah. So it's not to say that it's entirely different from the previous tool. It's just another way of expressing those logics, that logic or those rules. Make sense? No? Okay. Okay. So to go even further on the technical spectrum, this one, my least favorite because it's the least technical, the visual drag and drop techniques. So just by looking at the name, you should be able to get an idea of how we can use this to define, that's the word I was looking for before, define business logic. So visual drag and drop techniques is a graphical interface where you design integration workflows by dragging components onto a canvas and connecting them visually. So instead of you writing code or typing out rules, you'd literally draw the integrations, or you have your predefined shapes and you just click and drag and connect in between the boxes. So for example, you would drag the EHR, the electronic health record box, onto a canvas, and then you drag the pharmacy box and you draw a line in between them, and that would basically define your configuration flow. So it's a visual or a more intuitive way, and is the most modern form of integration that platforms will use, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. When I'm thinking
So,
about drag and drop, sir, it remind me of
mhm.
is it Visual Studio? Yeah, Visual Studio, where the
Oh
drag and
yeah.
drop the aspects into it, and then you code certain things into it. Is it like that?
I want to say yes. I'm not sure if I've ever used what you're describing in Visual Studio specifically, but let me see if I can give you another example and you tell me if it's similar. You ever seen this programming language before called Scratch, where you just have a bunch of shapes and instead of
Oh,
writing your
yes,
if
sir.
statements and your while
Yes,
loops,
sir. I've seen that.
yeah, you just
Yes,
use
sir.
it. I've never used it before, but they say it's supposed to be intuitive and easy, but this looks like chaos. But yeah,
Oh,
this is an example of the visual drag and drop. Let me give you another example. I want to feel like, let me see, Unity. You guys ever use Unity? Unity game engine?
not to code anything,
Drag
but to
and
play game,
drop.
yes, sir.
Mhm. Wait, is it Unity that has the drag and drop? Or is it,
Unreal.
I might be thinking, oh, it's whatever. I don't know if it's Unreal, It's something like this. This is what I was thinking about. We have some application that allows you to connect your system. Oh, wait, what is this? Is this Unity? I don't know. But you have your
Sir,
boxes
it kind of look like
and the data flows between them. What look like?
it look like when
Looks like some
is
Adobe app.
some in a way,
No?
yes, sir. And also it look like no, I can't remember it. I can't remember it. It's like the primary key section thing to
Oh, database stuff.
database, yes, sir.
Yeah, for real. Let me see. Do I have an example of that? Database. Oh, wait, yeah, database. There's a name for it. Entity relationship diagram? Entity
Yes, sir.
relationship diagram. ERD. Look at me remembering things. Yeah, it does look like an ERD. Um, I guess one thing I'll say about the ERD though, hmm, I'm not sure if I've ever crossed a tool. I'm not sure if I've ever come across a tool that would allow you to design a schema by using this view. In my experience, this is just a visual representation after you've actually done the manual coding. I could be wrong still. It's just me. I've never used a tool that allowed me to actually define the logic and the rules and the relationships of a database by using this view. I normally write it out in code. And then when I don't write it out in code, I get this view that I can look at to see if it is visually correct. You get me?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So going back to the visual drag and drop techniques now. So yeah, instead of writing code or typing out rules, you would literally draw your integration. So you have your EHR box and then you have your pharmacy box and you just draw a line in between them. And that would basically be you defining the flow of data between those two systems. All right. So in the hospital workflow, you have a workflow designer that might look like you'd have a box for a prescription entered, and then you have an arrow that goes to, hold on. Okay, a workflow designer might look like this. You have a box for prescription entered, and you have an arrow to check insurance status. Then you have a decision diamond. Oh, this is like flowcharts. A decision diamond that branches between either send to pharmacy or flag for manual review. Yeah. The whole thing will be visual, like a flowchart, like I mentioned a while ago. And you can see the process at a glance instead of having to read lines of code or read configurations. And this is one of the most important features of modern BPI platforms because it can be used to dramatically reduce the need for traditional programmers, and it would let business users contribute to the integration design. And I imagine you should be able to see how, right? Because with something that's supposed to be as seemingly intuitive as clicking boxes, drag and drop, and connecting lines, you may not necessarily need to know all of the coding detail that would be required to write something like using an SDK, right? As long as you have a good enough understanding of the business and each box is labeled appropriately, then all you're doing is connecting the dots, connecting lines between two entities. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good. All right. So that is tool number 4. Number 5 now, Avid Team Player. So this refers to collaborative tools within the BPI platform that enables team-based integration design. So integration projects, they're not solo work. You don't do it by yourself. You have your developers, you have your business analysts, you might have operation staff, and sometimes you even going to have clinical experts in the example of the hospital. I keep saying hospital, and they all work on the same integration. So the Avid team player capabilities, they mean multiple people can work on the same integration design at the same time. Similar to how you have multiple people editing a Google Doc at the same time. So now, like when you're using your Google Docs, you have one document where you have collaborative tools that allow everybody to sign in and work on the same document at the same time. This tool would allow, for multiple people to be working on a particular integration at the same time in the same way. So let me see. In the hospital context, you have the IT team who might be configuring the technical connections, while the clinical team, they're reviewing and adjusting the business rules. So both of them will be working on the same platform, and they'll be able to see each other's changes in real time. It's just that, both teams, they'll be working on different parts of the same system. And this would reduce miscommunications and it speeds up the design process because you wouldn't have to rely on one person performing all of the business rules or all of the development. The person that needs to do the very technical side of stuff, they would work on the system, on the technical side of the system. And then at the same time, somebody who is less technical, in this case, the clinical team, they'd be going and they'd be making configurations that the technical side left out for the clinical team to do, so that because the technical team, they may not necessarily know how the data is supposed to interact in the system. They don't know that this entity is supposed to send data to that one or when it's supposed to send data. They just know that this entity needs to exist and it should have the capability to send data from entity A to entity B. The clinical team is going to come in now and say, all right, so these are 2 entities that I have available to me. Entity A is supposed to send data to entity B whenever this particular action occurs. Okay? So this feature would address one of the challenges that were covered in Unit 3 as well. And that would be the varying stakeholder perspective. When everybody can see and contribute to the integration design, you would be able to surface conflicts and misalignments early. So it wouldn't be one person implementing everything, as I said. You'd have everybody given access to the system, and the people that are, let me see, how would I phrase this? the parts of the system that are relevant to a certain team, that team would be able to go in and configure it to the way that they need the system to work, assuming that it's not conflicting with any other system rules or any other business rules, right? But like I said, with everybody having access to the system all at the same time and early, it would prevent the conflicts from carrying out further into the go live state of the system. These decisions would cause conflicts early and then they'd fail fast. Remember last week I talked about fail fast? The conflicts would be, it would surface early and with them surfacing early would help to eliminate these misalignments. Yeah. Okay. And then now the last tool that we're going to take a look at is the legacy EDI interfaces. And EDI stands for electronic data interchange. So the EDI, there are standardized formats for exchanging business documents between systems electronically. EDI has been about for a while, since the 1970s, and it predates the internet. It predates REST APIs, it predates JSON. It was one of the first ways that businesses exchange data electronically. Data, for example, purchase orders, invoices, shipping notices, and insurance claims. And it was all exchanged in a standardized electronic format. So I'm going to tell you why it's still relevant. It's relevant for the purpose that, or for the reason that it's still used everywhere. Banks still use it, insurance companies use it, supply chains use it, and even government agencies use it, right? So Jamaica's insurance and healthcare system, they likely still use EDI components. When you're integrating modern system with older ones, you're very often going to have to need to implement support for EDI formats along the modern APIs. So in our hospital example, you can think of the billing system possibly needing to send insurance claims using an EDI format because that's what the insurance company accepts. It's not a case where the insurance company will be able to change the way that they accept data because that's how all of their clients currently accept or send them data. So the change, the way that it accepts or sends out data would probably take the system out. It would make the system go offline depending on how you implement that change. But it's a change, it's a format that currently works and everybody's already agreed to it. So it remains the same. And because it remains the same, your system or your integration is going to have to account for that type of format that's used. And you're going to have to build in what I said a while ago? Build in support for those EDI formats. So let me see. In our hospital example, the billing system might need to send insurance claims using an EDI format because that's what the insurance company expects or accepts. And then you'll have the EHR, the electronic health record system. That's going to speak modern REST or JSON. But the claims, they have to go out as EDI. So in a case like this, where you have those two different ways to send data, the two different protocols or interfaces, a good BPI platform will be able to handle both. You'll be able to handle both the modern and the legacy protocols. And this would connect back to the product transfer challenge that we saw in Unit 3. And it's important because, as you guys know, the different systems could potentially speak different languages. So understanding that there are systems that still use legacy EDI, being able to implement support in your BPI would help to bridge that gap. Is that clear? That makes sense? How do you feel about that?
Yes, sir.
Makes sense. Okay. So we'll have gone through the 6 tools that are used in BPI. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to see if we have a fair enough understanding of how these tools are used or which tool we need to use in a particular scenario, right? So let's see if we can recognize these tools in context. I'll give you the tools, or I'll give you the short scenarios, I mean. You see them on screen. And for each one, I want you to tell me which tool or feature is being used in this specific scenario. Okay? So look at the first one. A developer at a hospital downloads a package of code libraries from the EHR vendor and uses them to build a custom connection between the EHR, that being the electronic health record system, and the pharmacy system. Scenario one. What tool sounds like is being used in that scenario? Oh, I think Tariq wasn't here for that particular one. But Doma should be able to tell me. Keyword in this scenario is developer. Do you remember Doma?
Um, might need to go up and see, but I
Okay.
remember the name
Let me just put the
specifically.
6 of them are on screen. So these are the 6 we're looking at. The scenario is a developer at a hospital downloads a package of code libraries from the EHR vendor and uses them to build a custom connection between the
Software development
EHR
kit.
software development kit. Yeah. Tariq, let me ask you, just by having the names in front of you, without having gotten the explanation, would you have been able to tell me the tool that I described a while ago was software development kit?
Sorry, sir. I stepped out for a moment.
Mhm. All right, no problem. Um, okay, let me see. Let me just make sure you're here in that we are going through this activity where I'm
Yes,
describing a
sir.
scenario. Yeah, okay, good. All right.
I came in when you were explaining the SDK.
Oh, okay, got you. All right, no problem. All right. Well, since we got that one out of the way, the rest of them you should be able to help to answer. I also got scenario number 2. We will have a clinical administrator set up a rule that says when a patient is discharged, automatically generate a final bill and send a discharge summary to their GP or general, what GP stand for? General practitioner? That's all? Which one does that
So
sound
you can
like to
put
you?
on the tools on the screen
Yeah,
for a
sure.
quick second.
These are the tools. So it says a clinical administrator sets up a rule that says when a patient is discharged, automatically generate a final bill and send a discharge summary to their GP. Which one does that sound like?
That would be the business rule.
Okay. You say business rule. Um, which one does it sound like to you, Damoy? Do you agree with business rule?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. All
Wait,
right.
sorry, go back to the question. Wait, what was the
Hmm.
question again?
I don't agree with business rule. This is the one. So admin sets up when a patient is discharged, auto-generate a final bill and send discharge summary to their GP. I mean,
But sir,
I mean,
that
it
is business rule.
is a business rule, but how is it expressed? Because remember, going back to what we have, right? The way I was describing the levels of technicality on the spectrum, where you have tool number 1 being the most technical and tool number 4 being the least technical. SDK, that one is code, right? You go in and you write whatever programming languages your application needs, and that's how you implement the logic. Business rules is configuration. So it still requires technical knowledge. You go in and you make some changes to the way the application is built through the application's interface, and that one is business rules. And then natural language syntax, that one is another way of implementing business rule, but it's done through spoken language as opposed to technical terms or code. And then the visual drag and drop, that one is another way of defining business rules, but it's done on a graphical user interface, an intuitive drag and drop system where you can just have boxes and you connect lines in between them. So given that, what would you say scenario 2 is? I don't think it's business. I mean, it is business rules, but there's more specifics than just business rules because it's not configuration, given how the scenario is written. If
So,
you
sir,
notice what's in
it's
quotes,
probably the
mhm,
natural syntax.
I would think it's natural syntax, yeah. Natural language syntax, that's what it's called, right? Let me go back to it. Natural language syntax, yeah. Because the configuration that we're looking at or the business rule that we're looking at comes in the form of regular English, right? There's nothing technical about it. So I would consider that one to be natural language syntax. Terry, tell me if you agree. I think you were the one that answered it.
Yes, sir.
So you agree that it's more similar. It is a business rule, yes, so it's an expression of a business rule, but the way it's expressed, it's done in a natural language way. Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to the next one. I'll put the tools on screen after I read it. So scenario where 3, the hospital's billing system will send out insurance claims to Blue Cross in a standardized electronic format that hasn't changed since the 1990s. So the hospital's billing team sends insurance claims to Blue Cross in a standardized format that has not changed since the 1990s. Which tool are we using in this case?
Legacy EDI interfaces.
You say EDI interfaces. Tell me why.
Um,
Let's look at what it says for EDI. So EDI says that it supports exchanging business documents or data using a standardized electronic format. And it's been about since the 1970s. Yeah. So anytime you have some system or some entity that needs to communicate in electronic or digital format, if they're still using that format, more than likely, you're going to have to conform to the EDI standard. So yeah, I would think that this particular scenario would have the billing system sending data to the insurance claim using an EDI related format or an EDI relevant format. Yeah. So anytime they bring up the year and tell you it's from 19 how long, more than likely it's going to be an EDI format. So that is how the data is going to be transmitted from one system to the other using the EDI, the legacy EDI interface. Make sense?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Next one, scenario 4, I think. The IT team and the nursing team are both working on the same integration platform at the same time. IT is configuring data flows while the nurses are reviewing the workflow steps. So the IT team is just building out the different workflows, and the nursing team is defining the steps needed to take in these workflows. And they're both working on this configuration, not this configuration, they're both working on the integration platform at the same time. The IT team is doing their thing and the nurses are doing their thing. What BPI tool would they be using in this case? Let me put them up on the screen.
With team player, sir.
Yeah. So anytime you hear of collaborative work, one team doing something on the platform while another team is also doing something on the same platform at the same time, working on different parts of the integration, you can think of the Avid Team Player collaborative design. Sorry, the Avid Team Player BPI tool. My mistake. Yeah. The more we agree.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is this the last one then? Number 5, where we have an operations manager creates a workflow by dragging a prescription entered box, connecting it to a check inventory box, and then to a notify pharmacist box, all on a graphical canvas. I'm sure you'll be able to tell
Visual
me what
drag
this
and
one
drop.
is. Visual
Visual drag
drag
and
and
drop.
drop. Yeah. So visual drag and drop, that one is the graphical interface. That one doesn't include any kind of coding. It's just visual workflow design. Yeah. And apart from the fact that it very obviously points out that they have boxes and they're dragging lines, you can also think about who is using this part of the integration system. It's the operations manager. And I don't know, you may not have the direct experience with this, but operations managers are not required. Not to say that they aren't technical people, or they're not generally required to be technical people because of the level up the hierarchy that they're working, right? They typically manage people and processes as opposed to the technicality of code, right? So yeah. All right, so that was good. I want you to notice how some of these tools are for developers, like the SDK, and some of them are for non-technical users, like the drag and drop one and the natural language syntax. Right? Some modern BPI platforms try to include both technical and non-technical people so that everybody can contribute. Yeah. I shouldn't even say both technical and non-technical. I should say technical, non-technical, and everybody in between. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Right, 7:05. I have more to cover, but I think I'm gonna stop here. Because we're covering a lot. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here. So with that, we'd have covered the BPI tools that one would need to know in order to perform business process integrations as opposed to the general systems integration, right? And we went through the definitions. We did examples on how to identify them. And what we're going to be looking at next, or not next, but next week, Tuesday, is the approaches to BPI. The approaches to BPI that we're going to be looking at are top down and bottom up, which is something we've talked about before. We're going to be looking at it more in depth and in the context of BPI or business process integration as opposed to systems integration. All right. So we're good to stop
Yes,
there.
sir.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we shall meet again on the Tuesday. Good?
Yes.
Mhm.
Take care, sir.
You too. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.